It's time for a little comedy, a little content, and a lot of conversation. It's the Geno Jones Show, exclusively right here on YouTube. Now here's your host, Geno Jones.
What's happening, everybody? It is showtime. How are we doing today? Yes, it is time for another edition of the Geno Jones Daily Variety Show, Monday through Friday, right here, live on my YouTube channel. Brought to you today by Lockwood Outdoor Advertising, converting cars into cash. Beautiful big digital outdoor billboard. As a matter of fact, this is the only black-owned outdoor digital advertising company in the state of South Carolina. We are all about supporting black businesses, since it seems like not too many other folks are. We're just keeping it 1,000. So for all those allies out there, my white brothers and sisters that say, what can I do? I want to be an ally. I want to be anti-racist. What can I do to help? How can I help African Americans support black businesses? That's a great start. So shout out to Rodney Lockwood and Raquel Paget with Lockwood Outdoor Advertising. You can check them out, get all the information that you need in case you are interested in doing some digital outdoor advertising. LockwoodOutdoor.com. That is LockwoodOutdoor.com. All right, listen, we got a hot show. One of my regular contributors, political commentator and media personality. I think he's the president of the Black Law Students Union. If I got the title wrong, he'll correct me. Sean Mitchell, he'll be coming up. We're going to have a very interesting conversation. We're going to do a little, take a page out of First Take and Skip and Shannon today. We're going to talk about the $15 minimum wage that did not make it in the COVID-19 relief bill. However, there's good news that COVID relief bill, I should call it the COVID rescue bill, was passed today by the House of Representatives. President Biden is going to sign the bill soon, possibly, who knows, maybe sometime tomorrow, by Friday at the latest. Also, by the way, don't forget this weekend, daylight savings time begins. You know what that means? That means, so Saturday night before you go to bed, turn your clocks up, ahead, spring ahead, fall back, spring ahead, spring forward, fall back. So at 2 o'clock Saturday night, Sunday morning becomes 3 o'clock. So whatever time you go to bed Saturday night, make sure you set all of your clocks ahead by 1 hour. So, like I said, President Biden is going to sign the COVID relief/rescue bill, the $1.9 trillion bill. And keep in mind, your boy, the last dude, he spent that same exact amount of money to give billionaires and corporations a huge tax cut. So, just for the record. So, I'm calling it the the Biden checks. That's right, get ready. Those $1,400 checks. Now, let me just say this in all fairness. No, President Biden is not going to have his name like in a giant Sharpie all over the check. No, I don't need all that. He said he wants to get these checks out as soon as possible. So the $1,400 checks are coming soon if you are getting unemployment. Great news, the unemployment checks that you've been getting, the extra $300 a week that you've been getting, that was running out at the end of this month. Well, guess what? You're going to get that extra $300 a week. I may have said month. Let me make sure I'm correct. The extra $300 a week in your unemployment insurance check, you'll be getting that until September 6th. Also, if you get a child tax credit, you're going to get up to $3,600 per child in terms of a child tax credit that will take half of the children who are in poverty in America out of poverty the moment that the president signs that bill. So that is some good news. Now, I'm here broadcasting in the Carolinas. Senator Tim Scott, one of the two senators here in South Carolina, denounced raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, and he said that he called like wanting to raise the minimum wage, the federal minimum wage, to $15 an hour. He calls that woke supremacy. And he said, woke supremacy is as bad as white supremacy. Now, Senator Scott, Slavery, lynching, rape, murder, redlining in banking, in buying homes, in business loans, in insurance. I don't think that woke supremacy, first of all, that's just BS. There's no such thing as woke supremacy. But even if it was, woke supremacy, folks weren't being lynched. The institution of slavery wasn't built upon the foundation of woke supremacy. It just wasn't. Murder and lynching and just Jim Crow laws. I could go on and on and on. There's the 13th Amendment that said, oh yeah, black folks are free, but if you commit a crime, oh, guess what? Then we can force you to provide free labor in prison. So miss me with that, okay? And speaking, since we're talking about senators here in the state of South Carolina, Senator Lindsey Graham says the $5 billion fund for black farmers, all right, this is also in the COVID-19 relief or rescue bill. So Mr. Lindsey Graham was on state TV, you know, or what is it? Fox News? It should be, I guess, TTV, that's what they call it. Anyway, so Senator Graham said the $5 billion fund for black farmers being allowed to pay debt down is reparations. Here we go again. So let me set the record straight. So this $5 billion fund for farmers targeted toward African American farmers and indigenous farmers, farmers that have been discriminated against for years. So Senator Graham, maybe you don't know your history. You know there are like 1 million African American farm landowners, farmers that had their land, in essence, taken from them, stolen from them, sanctioned by the federal government. You can Google that and do your homework, okay? All right. And by the way, this same money, white farmers are allowed to apply for it, but the money is targeted to black farmers. Because that last administration that you were so busy playing golf with and had your nose and your head so far up his ass, we could see your eyeballs if he opened his mouth. Yeah, white farmers were getting all kind of subsidies. So when he implemented the tariffs on China, and then the farmers began to lose a lot of money, a lot of those farmers in the Midwest, well, guess what? They were able to get, they got money. They were able to get federal dollars. Black farmers haven't seen that. So just want to set the record straight there. So here is my biggest beef. And also I want to address, not to mention, I want to address voter suppression that I haven't heard either Senator Scott or Senator Graham or any of these other senators that voted against this bill. I haven't heard anybody talking about, isn't it a shame that all these states like Georgia and Florida, and you've got all these states, Arizona, that's passing laws, basically voter suppression laws. Oh, you can't vote on Sunday. Oh, as a matter of fact, on Election Day, we want to make the hours, we want to reduce the hours that you can vote on Election Day. And we don't want you voting on Sunday because we know those darkies, those dark folks like to vote on Sundays. They call it souls to the polls. So we can't allow it to happen in 2022 and 2024. We can't allow that to happen again. And we can't win black people over and Hispanics. Well, they win some, but the majority of Hispanics in America, Hispanic Americans, don't vote with yes on that side of the ledger. We can't, just progressive, fair, open-minded, white folks, indigenous, Asian Americans. We can't win them over with our ideas and policies. So we got to figure out a way to keep them from voting. So let's pass some more voter suppression laws. I believe it's H.R. 1. So let me just simplify it. Basically, we can call it the John Lewis, the Civil Rights Bill, an updated modern version of the Civil Rights Bill, which will not allow, it basically will eliminate and make sure that states cannot enact voter suppression laws. Basically what went on before the Civil Rights Act was passed, when you had a literacy test and how many jelly beans are in a jar, or you had to pay a poll tax, you had to pay some outrageous amount of money to vote. All of those were voter suppression tactics. And the Civil Rights Act banned all that. But folks kept, just whittling away, and now the Civil Rights Act has basically been dismantled. Hence the John Lewis Civil Rights Act. As a matter of fact, the bill it's been signed off on in the House of Representatives. Been signed off on years. But are you going to support that when it comes to the Senate? That's a whole nother conversation. But here's my beef, and we're going to bring on I'm going to bring on my contributor, my political contributor, Mr. Sean Mitchell, in a second. So Lindsey Graham's net worth is $5 million. Tim Scott's net worth is $15 million. Senator Joe Manchin, who was, I guess he thought he was the president for a minute, and was like, well, this $15 an hour minimum wage is too much, and blah, 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 blah. It's like, yo, and you're going to vote with the Republicans, and you're going to kill this bill? All these people in your state, the second poorest state in America, West Virginia, all the West Virginians who need this money, who need that $1,400 check, who need to get a living minimum wage in 2021, we are debating about $15 an hour. Do the math. If you work 40 hours a week, you get paid $15 an hour. That's roughly $30,000, $31,000 a year. Can any family of 4, 5, 3 live off $30,000, even in West Virginia in 2021? So you got 3 senators whose net worth on the low end is $5 million, on the high end is $15 million, who make $174,000 a year in salary from us, the taxpayers, who got the best health care plan in America, that they don't even, and that money, that doesn't even come out of their check. And then you want to nickel and dime people who are making $30,000 a year? Nah, that's too much. 20,000, 15, 16,000 a year, that's enough. Where in America, where the hell in America, you can't even be homeless and live off $15,000 or $16,000 a year. As a matter of fact, $15,000 or $16,000 a year will get you homeless. That's my rant for today. That's my monologue. Coming to the show, ladies and gentlemen, you heard me talking about him. You've seen him before. My political contributor, he's a media personality. I believe the president, he'll correct me, the president of the Black Law Students Union.
Actually,
well, let me bring you on camera. Well, you here. You know what? I'm gonna let you introduce yourself. Damn it! Now that's what you get. So hold on. Let me bring you on camera first, ladies and gentlemen. Let me get him here. Let me hit this button right here, right now. That's my man, Sean Mitchell. Okay, Mr.
I didn't know you had a space shuttle NASA set up over there where you were controlling the cameras. I would have
that's all right.
I would have got an adult beverage or something had I known that.
Well, since I didn't get a chance to get the email, I was looking in the text message. So I want to introduce you properly and give you all your correct titles. But go ahead and tell me what I got wrong. There you go.
I am the National Black Law Student Association, otherwise known as NABALSA, Attorney General elect.
Okay.
So within the structure of NABALSA, which is a national Black Law Student Association, we have pre-law associations involved, and as well as alumni groups. Everybody from Kamala Harris to Holder, to a lot of the prominent Black attorneys have participated in the NABALSA. It started by A.J. Cooper back in 1968, and the purpose of NABALSA is to grow and cultivate culturally aware Black and minority attorneys.
I love it. Okay.
Just a side note, since you brought it up and I'm a part of the organization, I don't think a lot of people realize that in the grand scheme of attorneys and people, judicial nominations and all that, Black people make up 5% of the lawyer employment. And so when we make up 12% of the population, we have to do something with those numbers. a lot of reasons why we encounter some of the issues we encounter in the criminal justice system. You were talking about earlier Black farmers and how Black
Right.
people have lost land, is most of us don't retain an attorney. Um, One thing, I'm gonna just throw this in there. I'm not promoting this group, but just to give you an idea,
Okay.
you have prepaid legal, okay, and you pay a monthly fee and they provide an attorney. That's like the bare minimum thing that I would advise anybody. You should always have an attorney. And the reason why is you just never know.
True.
You need somebody to look over paperwork. Maybe we always think criminally represented. There's a lot of reasons when you purchase a house,
Right.
just dealing with that. But yeah, I am the attorney general elect, and you can go to nabalsa.org if you'd like to donate money to help our cause.
Okay, well,
So yeah,
first of all, let me apologize. But so you're the attorney general, but I was giving you a promotion.
yeah. No, I don't want to be president. We have a new chair. They're doing a great job. No, I don't.
That
I don't
was
wanna
on
be
me, guys.
president.
Yeah, that's my boy.
No,
He's
no.
family. I was giving him a promotion. What can I say?
Yeah, you're forever trying to get me closer to the Oval Office.
Yes,
no
I
matter
am. Yes, I
what
am.
it is. But no, that's the farthest thing from my mind. But I enjoyed the monologue, and you brought up a couple of points that I think stand out. One about the COVID bill. And I watched some of the news. It just so happens that I'm technically on spring break, so I was able to watch a little bit of news. And I found, I'm one of those people when I used to do this style of show, Geno, I always tell people where I get my sources. So I just went to usatoday.com and just to check out what is the news saying. And here's 10 things that people may not know in this bill, because I know if you're in conservative South Carolina and throughout the parts of the South, you're going to hear all these negative things about the bill, and that's just BS for the most part. First of all, you're in one of the hospitality capitals of the world.
Yes,
Charleston,
absolutely.
South Carolina. One thing that I loved about Charleston was the outstanding restaurants. Whatever kind of food you wanted, especially the seafood.
true.
I'm not going to shout out any restaurants in particular, but I enjoyed my time in Charleston eating. There's $28.6 billion for independent restaurants, not the chain restaurants. I'm talking about the mom and pop
Great.
restaurant down there on King Street that has lost money during the COVID pandemic, and you lost business. So this is something in there. And again, the COVID bill isn't necessarily geared towards minorities. This is something for everybody. And I know Charleston, it literally runs on the independent restaurants and the choice of food choices you have in Charleston. So that's something that will definitely help the Charleston area. Here's
Right.
another thing.
Well, and do me a favor, Sean. I'm sorry not to interrupt, but that's important. I just want to go back. Give me that number again. Let's give our viewers that number again. How much money is going to, and especially this money is going to be targeted in a way to where those small mom pop, Black-owned, minority-owned, women-owned businesses who didn't get the first PPP, Tom Brady and Kanye got that money. But this money, it'll be the smaller mom pop restaurants and establishments that's been around, family businesses that's been around for 50, 75 years. They'll see that money. And how much is that again? What's that number?
28.6 billion. Great. So what I would tell anybody to do is right now, if I owned a small business, I would be online trying to find out, hey, where do I need to put my application in? Because once this bill is signed, we know from the previous stimulus packages, first come, first serve. Yes. And so I'm hoping your listeners and people throughout the United States, I know we talk about Charleston and the politics and everything there, but I do have a love for Charleston. It's a wonderful place, even though there's a lot of differences and there's issues. But one of the things about Charleston is it's an escape for most of the United States. I didn't realize how much of an escape it was until I left and came back home to Chicago. And Chicago is home, but you wake up on the average to beautiful weather, great food.
The ocean, we're right here on the ocean.
The ocean is right there.
We're on the ocean, yes.
Yeah, there's negatives, storms and different things like that. But so what? That's part of the ambiance of living on the coast. And so I think it's important that we remember that a lot of these stimulus packages, when we're talking small businesses, they're talking directly to Charleston. Here's another thing that's probably big in Charleston. You and I talked about it off camera. $22 billion for rental assistance and billions more for other housing needs. So this will help people with that mortgage moratorium.
Right.
It'll help people with rental assistance. Again, the COVID bill, we have to remember, this is just a drop in a bucket of what really needs to happen. All this COVID bill is basically going to get us back to square zero, where we were prior to COVID.
Right. Not one, but you said thank you, zero.
Square zero, because it doesn't help us with what the big issue is. We have a housing shortage. We have a shortage of minority-owned homes. And when I say minority-owned homes, I'm not only talking Black people. I'm not only talking Black women. I'm not only talking Hispanics and other foreigners and Asians. I'm talking about a system that has been set up and designed to keep people of color and women away from ownership. And in order to build wealth in the United States, it's all about owning property. At least for us common folks, owning property is the fastest way to accumulate wealth. Yes. And then people always talk, well, people start businesses. Well, what a lot of people don't talk about is they don't have Donald Trump's dad to go ask for 10, $15 million. What they do is they mortgage their home. They put a second mortgage on their home. They use their home as a source of wealth. But even if you're not doing that, you work at the plant, you work on the port every day, and you're making all this money. You have a home investment. You invest in your home, you sell your home, or you leave your home to your heirs, your kids, something for them to build off of. The other things that are in this bill is obviously we need to get the kids back in school. Again, bill only gets us back to square zero. They're spending $125 billion for school reopenings. Now, I want to say this part. South Carolina, you're a victim of this, but it's not just in South Carolina. All states have this problem, especially like when you leave Chicago. Chicago turns into Alabama real quick when you leave the 5 collar counties. I don't think people realize that. Like when you're in New York, as soon as you go upstate, it turns into Mississippi.
Right.
All these major cities, their states are pretty much rural. And so one thing COVID has exposed is the lack of internet and broadband access. It has really been a problem. But when we're in this digital age and we had to use emergency tactics to cover the kids with school, it really opened everybody's eyes to the inequities in different areas of the United States, inadequacies when it comes to broadband. Right. And in my opinion, broadband, internet communication, water, electricity belong to the commons. They belong to the people. I'm one of those firm believers that commercial entities shouldn't be profiting from this. And the reason why I say that, I know a lot of people say, well, it's socialism. Well, that's bullshit, because they started these entities with socialism. The government is electrified the country. Look it up in history. And these private entities or state partnerships allowed that to grow. And what happened in Texas is a perfect example of when you allow private entities to control the grid, because they're not about the safety of the grid or protection of the grid. They're about the profit of the grid. And so I don't know whether, I know here in Illinois, electricity has always been high, but we're fortunate where we have a state board that controls ComEd.
Right.
ComEd can only raise the rates if the board allows them. And you say, well, there's a board doing that. No, the board is held accountable by who? The governor and the state legislators that we elect. So guess what? If that board raises my electrical rates beyond what I want, guess who I'm going to take that out on? My local state representative, my state senator, and my governor, and anybody in his administration that allowed this to happen. So again, what I get the point, you don't want the government controlling everything, but what you do want is accountability. And a lot of times from corporations, you don't get this kind of accountability.
No.
And then the final thing, because it's 10, and you can go to usatoday.com and look up this, so I'm not going to take up much time, but the point that you brought up about Black and Hispanic and other minority farmers, $5 billion for them. Now, let me say this. Back when I did my show back in 2008 there in Charleston, on Star 99, when I was doing the Sean Mitchell show, I did a 3-week series about Black farmers and the aid that George W. Bush signed into law for Black farmers. President Barack Obama tried to get it added to the budget. The Republicans blocked it. And so here we are again. Lindsey Graham, the former IQ 46 president's ball washer, is now out attacking Black and Hispanic farmers. Here's what I would say, and this kind of ties into what I was going to say finally. South Carolina, you guys need to rise up like Georgia did. Lindsey Graham may escape. He escaped his last re-election, but you should point directly at Tim Scott. You should make Tim Scott pay for Lindsey Graham's inequities. And so what I would say is no matter what they're doing to the voting laws,
let me jump in real quick.
Be prepared to fix that.
Right. Let me just jump in here real quick. I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a reason I just wanted to jump in. Now, for a couple of years now, the general rumor or just the general consensus from very informed people was that Tim Scott was not going to run again, basically, that when his term is up in 2022. Now, there's been no I haven't seen any official news conference, but that's been in the air for a couple of years, especially here in the state of South Carolina. Don't know how true that is, but even if he's not going to run, then we need to make somebody pay, and that seat we can target. So I just wanted to just add that for context, add that to the point you were just making. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Daffy Duck, Tim Scott is running again. He's been setting the stage for that, attempting to play the game of being the Black Republican. And it kind of brings me to what you were talking about earlier. And I don't understand Republicans when it comes to this. First of all, I grew up in a Black family all my life. I just want to make that disclosure. And I'm willing to say in my Black family, 40 to 45% of my relatives are conservative. They are. And if the Republicans didn't approach things in such a racist manner, those people in my family, the ones that aren't voting Republican, probably would vote Republican. And I don't have a problem with anybody being conservative. I do have a problem with somebody being a Republican in this current form. I want there to be Black conservatives. I think that's important for discourse. I say that all the time. I'm a liberal, almost leftist, but there are things me and the Republicans can agree on, like we'll get into later about I'm for the $15 an hour, but I think the Democrats are trying to add it with a sledgehammer instead of a scalpel. And we can get into that in a little bit. So, but what I'm saying is, and to Tim Scott and his kind, if you guys would eliminate the racists and the nutbags in your party, you can attract some of the Black and minority voters that really are conservative. I think it's true. The older you get, the more conservative you become, because time is running out. And I think it's human nature to kind of grab all your stuff and bring it closer to you.
Which is pretty selfish, but that's another conversation. But
yeah, that's another conversation, but it's just human nature, and we can't argue with human nature. And that doesn't make the Republicans right, and it doesn't make the Democrats wrong. But what I think I like to see is what the founders, even though I wasn't considered in the founding of the document, but off the principles that we have different ideologies and that we can come together for a common cause and work towards this thing or this project called America. We cannot do that when we have one party government and the other party is just literally a bunch of nuts sitting in a corner, shitting in their hands and smearing it on the walls. We can't get anywhere like that. So that's my point. Not that I agree with them, but for the idea of the experiment called America, we need all hands on deck and people with rational ideology moving forward.
Sean, you gave
so that's basically I gave a whole notebook, and this is the Geno Jones show.
No. You are a contributor. Come on now. Come on, Shot Down. Don't you do that. Don't you? Come on. You know better than that. So listen.
Yeah, I'm just teasing.
I know we really are like we like brothers. We, like I said, we have fun.
Yeah.
We did this on the air before on the radio. Now we can just get to have fun and do it on camera. So listen.
Right.
You actually, as always, and most of the time anyway, I have to check with the missus, your lady, on that. She may disagree with me, but
she's gonna tell you hell no.
Most of the time, you give excellent advice. But here's the problem. Here's a couple problems. One, so your grandfather, maybe your fathers or grandmothers, Republican, their view of what the Republican Party was is no longer. As a matter of fact, there is, in essence, no Republican Party. All
It
right.
hasn't been that way since my lifetime, and I'll be 49 in less than a month.
Right.
Since the Nixon Southern strategy that eliminated the Republican Party that my grandparents and great grandparents knew of, that's gone.
This is I call him Orange Hitler. This is Dew's party, and basically what's left are, for the most, in most cases, all you got to do is just look at the rhetoric, look at what people are saying, look at how they are voting. Your Marjorie Taylor Greens, look whose voices are being amplified, look who the leader of the party was and what he represented and what he stood for.
He still is the leader of the party. That hasn't changed.
My point exactly. Who tells white nationalists and white militias stand by and stand back, and emboldens and go all the way back to Charlottesville a couple of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. There were good people among the neo-Nazis and the anti-Semites and the KKK members that was a part of that, not to mention the misogyny, the sexism. And I'm going to say this one more time, and I've said it so many times. I've done episodes and I've talked about this. If you saw the movie Judas and the Black Messiah, Fred Hampton Jr. tapped into this. Dr. Martin Luther King tapped into this. And there are many people will tell you one of the reasons that Dr. King and Fred Hampton Jr. were assassinated, because they tapped into this, which is they were able to speak to poor working class white people, trailer park communities, even some with Confederate flags, to look into their eyes and say, listen,
it's amazing you bring that up.
Well, let me just finish this point. There's a small handful of people with power in every walk of life who control politics and big business and corporate America and corporate media, and it is their job. It's like a shell game. We call it in Chicago. You can get on in all big cities. You can get on a bus or L if it's crowded, and one dude will bump you, and you'll look at him, and then his partner will go in your pocket and steal your wallet. So to my white brothers and sisters, even the ones who, think that Democrats are like flesh-eating, human-eating pedophiles in the bottom of a pizza parlor. The people who are in your pocket, the people who don't want you to get a $15 an hour minimum wage, the people who really don't want you to get health care are people who are billionaires and millionaires who make $174,000 minimum salary, who get free health care that you pay for, who are in your pocket and telling you they want to nickel and dime you and your family trying to survive off $20,000, $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 a year, and they want to nickel and dime you and shame you and say that you're lazy and shiftless. But I don't know any industry like the Congress. How many recesses do they take a year? How many vacations? They're off more than they work. How can they call anybody lazy? And to imply that black folks are lazy, since we provided free labor and generated trillions of dollars for a whole lot of folks, there's billions of dollars in value here in Charleston, downtown, in the area called the Battery. You can go down and you see these old buildings built with the White House itself was built by slaves, free slave labor. We just talked about all the black farmers whose land literally was stolen by the government. Do you hear what I'm saying? Look at Black Wall Street in Tulsa. Thriving black communities, banks, and
all that summer,
that whole summer,
from right after the war, right after the Great War, the first war, till for 4 or 5 years after they did that and eliminated black wealth. The other part of it is that I think it's important that we remain focused, because anytime you make gains, historically we could talk about, look what happened at Reconstruction. You had the most black leadership and the most black voter outcome. And what they did was they attacked that infrastructure. They pitted the newly freed black people and the poor farmers, white farmers, against each other. They started the idea that we'll unionize the white workers
Yes.
and not unionize the black workers. That left the farm and carried on into the industrial north, like Detroit. I just read a case
Chicago, all
where
the Great
General
Migration.
Motors was sued in the late 50s for not representing black workers in the union, or the railroad was sued in the early 1900s for letting black workers get mistreated, and the union didn't do anything about it. So that's it. Another thing is, you brought up Fred Hampton. The funny thing is, I grew up in Broadview, Illinois, next to Maywood, where Fred Hampton is from. I have cousins. My mom's first cousins were in high school with Fred Hampton. The funny thing about the movie is it only talks about that brief period of Fred Hampton's life when he's grown. But Fred Hampton, and you can look this up, Proviso East High School, my high school in Maywood, Illinois,
That's right,
had race riots that created where Chicago, we talk about this being the liberal North, but Chicago is one of the most, if not the most segregated city in the country. That includes the suburbs. And so what you had in the suburb I grew up in at the time, it was transforming from being an all white suburb to being a mixed suburb. And you had pushback in the schools. You had where they had the separate but equal thing going on, where black kids weren't allowed to socialize. So what you had was white and black kids at my former high school, one of the top high schools in the country, get together, and they had race riots. The other thing is, the white parents that didn't like it created another high school, Proviso West. It's a whole nother subject. These things all happened before the movie. And I have mixed opinions about the movie. I support the movie. I got to say this, and this may make some people mad.
That's okay. Come on, this is what we do here.
I have a problem when we do historical movies and we utilize black people that are not from the United States, because they don't have an appreciation for our history. The brother that played Fred Hampton,
Daniel Kaluuya,
he made statements in the past where he said he was tired of being cast or portrayed, having to do black roles because he's more than a black actor. I find that disrespectful. And to bring that forward that's exactly why Miss Merkel is being the young lady that married into the British crown is being treated that way. Britain, I used to tell my mother this, she followed the royal family. Britain is the original oppressor, the original colonizer.
The British Empire.
What makes you think a pack of royal inbreds are going to be accepting of an American who has mixed lineage? Now, there's two things going on here. No disrespect to the young lady, but I think she thought that because of her mixed heritage, that she would be accepted into the royal family. Ain't gonna happen.
It's funny. All right, we'll pivot here because we can do that, because you and I are we're quick and nimble mentally and physically. So let's extrapolate that point, and that's been something a lot of people are talking about. So Damaris and I had that conversation I think it was Monday morning. No, yesterday, because when I came home from work, Damaris was working from home, and she was actually watching the whole interview with Oprah. So I just posed the question because I don't know, Sean, and my wife made a real good point, and I want to share this with you because, see, you and I, I was raised in a house full of women, but I just, on some things I can be a hard ass, and I wasn't being a hard ass. It was just, I try to look at everything in like a 3D dimension, the full spectrum. And because I just speculated and wondered out loud. I said, because I genuinely listen. Mental health is real, and the pain that Meghan Markle experienced is real. You could see it, you could feel it, and you could hear it. But to your point, I wondered out loud. I said, how much was it naivete? How much of it was maybe a level of arrogance? And when I say arrogance, maybe because she felt that, listen, I'm well spoken and I'm well mannered. I've been very successful, brilliant, intelligent woman, and maybe she felt that her credentials and her receipts and resume would somehow cause them to look at her differently. Because, you know, in some circles, you know, we are looked at as, especially if we've been successful on any level, we're like, oh, the magic Negro. You're not like them.
There you go.
You are different. No, I am like them. And there's a lot of them just like me. If they get the opportunity and they don't have to deal with the forces and vestiges of white supremacy and hate and bigotry, and them black women have to deal with all the forces of white supremacy and racism and sexism and misogyny. And then on top of that, black women have to deal with sexism and misogyny, unfortunately, too many times from black men, which is another conversation.
Oh, yeah.
So
that's unfortunate.
So Damaris's point was this, Sean, was that she said, why couldn't it be that she was just so in love with Harry, and it's pretty clear they both love each other, was that she wanted to be like the best wife. She fell in love with this man. So she just felt like any family. If they see that, wow.
I'm not gonna deny that, and I believe that. I also believe that women believe in love like that, so that's strong possibility. But the reality is that the Crown this is how they've behaved since Hastings War that set up the royal family. They have done everything to hide things within their bloodline that they feel ashamed. Look, they have blackness in their bloodline.
Yes.
Okay. So, but look, I've traveled in Europe. The truth of the matter is that if we just want to talk history, and this upsets white nationalists,
let's talk.
But the truth of the matter is that Europe and the things that Europe is in the modern era, they wouldn't be without the Moors. Who are the Moors? They're black men from Africa that brought hygiene and sanitation to Europe. In fact, when you travel throughout Europe, you'll see, even in Russia, you will see, and that's Eurasia, you'll see statues dedicated to these Moors, these black men that saved Europe, that brought modern sanitation from Africa to Europe.
Yeah.
People
Italy,
get mad and say whatever they want to say, but the Europeans were living in caves, were eating raw meat, were doing all these things until the Africans and the great migration that took Africans from Africa all the way to the islands of Japan. Why do you think in Japan you see people with noses, statues with noses that look like mine? Japanese don't have noses like these. Asians don't have noses like these. But if you look at the statues and you look at all these things in the historical record, you'll see that the Africans were the first universal traveler.
Google.
All these white supremacists come from one black lady, Ruby, who's over 850,000 years old. So when I see somebody as a white supremacist and they look at me with hate, they're hating themselves. We are, the people of color are, is what they're talking about in the Bible and all the great books that talk about mankind and the evolution of mankind. And we are the original people. Right. That doesn't dismiss anybody. We're all humans, but we need to set the record straight and let's start dealing in fact, because part of the reason why we have racism and such hatred in this country when it comes to races is the ignorance, the particular ignorance of one group that thinks because they've won so much that they've been able to write history, that their history is accurate, when it just doesn't stand up.
Well, that's intentional too.
That's the reality.
Yeah, and that's intentional. So let's just for those who may not be people of faith or religious at all, we can just deal with this from a scientific standpoint. You can talk to any anthropologist. Civilization, humankind, as we know, originated from the area that is the continent of Africa. So that's a scientific fact, and which gets into this whole, first of all, and this ties into the British Empire. See, the whole concept of whiteness, which I dealt with on the show, was created in Europe, in the 17th century, late 1600s. It was created in Europe and exported here. America actually was initially colonized, by someone from the British Empire in 1607. The first African slaves got here in August of 1619. So the British Empire, think about it. Just look up, Google the definition of colonize, to colonize.
Yeah.
That means that you come someplace where people are living, the indigenous people, and basically you just take over. You bring your culture and kind of impose your way of life on
And
these
disease
indigenous people,
and genocide,
because you feel that you're smarter, and then you come and then you take the land and the resources, the gold and the diamonds, the spices, the whatever. These are scientific facts. So to piggyback on another point that you talked about, Sean, see, this is the problem that, especially in America, is that we have taught lies to not just black folks, white folks, all children, all American children of any ethnicity, that we have never taught the true history. And you got some states that don't even want to do it right now because it's like, well, we don't want to make the founding fathers, you don't want to make white people look bad. No, it's not. You can't have any type of reconciliation without truth and accountability. You've got to have that. I can't. I'll just put it in a gender form. If God forbid, which I would never do, if I'm in a very abusive relationship where I'm being very abusive to my spouse, physically, mentally, and emotionally, and I've done this for years and years and years and years, and for whatever reason I have a come to Jesus moment, and then I stop, and then she's like, well, yeah, but can I trust you? For 10 years you've been abusive and talked to me any kind of way. You've beat me and you've beaten down my spirit. And now all of a sudden, just because you stopped, I'm supposed to be okay, but you never address. But I never go back, Sean, and acknowledge and own my mistake.
What you did, right.
And never make a concrete effort to atone for that. Because if you built up that kind of negative equity, if I've been mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually abusive for 15 years, then just because I stopped, I can't expect you to be like, okay, well, then it's good.
We cool now.
Yeah, it's like, no, we ain't cool, especially
we're not.
If you don't address that. And one last thing, because this whole concept, please, to my white brothers and sisters, biracial, because all these terms, if you understood science, as a matter of fact, if you get a chance, Google Jane Elliott. This is an older white woman, probably around 80 right now. And she can speak to this, especially to white people, being a white woman, and she does it probably better than anybody that I've seen. Speak to this whole concept of whiteness, which was invented. Trust me, if you get a DNA test, the DNA test is not going to say I'm white or black. It will say that you have ancestry from somewhere in Europe, from Italy or Spain or Portugal. Those of us that have family members or descendants from the continent, because Africa is not a country, Africa is a continent, and there are countries on the continent of Africa. We could have our descendants from Cameroon or Ghana or Nigeria or Egypt or someplace like that. It won't say black, it's not gonna say white. This was made up by a handful of people with money, power, political, economic power to pit poor and working class white people against people of color. Because the truth is, the majority of people on the planet, and I'll close on this fact, you can Google that, the majority of people on this planet are people of color.
Yeah. You're exactly right. I can't even add anything to that, except the one thing is to remember race is a social construct. The reason why race was created was to create the acceptance of utilizing black slaves. I've heard on different talk shows over the weeks about reparations saying that slavery was something a part of mankind, but there was a distinct difference between the type of slavery and indentured servitude that mankind had prior to the transatlantic slave trade. And so people, can play this game of semantics, but there's a distinct difference. There's a distinct reason why we have race. And oh, by the way, after you free and emancipate the slaves, and then you see how quickly and eager Black people are to participate in the government, the late 1800s, early 1900s, along with the whites in Europe, you start the eugenics programs, where now you're going to scientifically say that Blacks are inferior with hocus pocus science. And all of those things fuel some of the racism that we're seeing today. I also want to say before I leave, I talk a lot about race and I'm an activist, but most people will tell you I'm also one, and this is where I really connect with Fred Hampton, not only being from that area, not only knowing people that, knew the family and grew up in the struggle, is that I believe in solidarity. I learned one thing living in the South after being a kid, growing up fairly privileged in the North in the suburbs with grandparents and a mom who were successful. And what I learned is that in the South, I have a lot of, I call them some of the best redneck white people friends I could ever want. And what I learned is it's about solidarity. Some of those same white folks, when I got to Charleston, say 2001 or 2, would have a Confederate flag hanging up in their house and stuff, and we'd have a conversation. Those same white folks now don't even have that flag hanging nor participate because they got to know me. And they got to understand where I was coming from. And they got to step outside of their zone. And I think a lot of Black people, we have to do this too. Sometimes we grow up in experiences where we don't have that diversity of growth around different kind of people. And this happens within Black culture too. I went to a HBCU, and I went to school at Grambling with people that grew up on food stamps, drinking sugar water, and butter sandwiches. I didn't grow up like that. I'm not saying I'm not dismissing it. I'm just saying I didn't grow up like that.
You were blessed.
But I also met people. Yeah, I was blessed. But I also know Black people who grew up in Bel Air, Los Angeles. I went to college with, where they grew up. When they graduated from high school, their parents bought them Porsches and stuff like that. And so I think that we need to keep in mind that Black people are not this group that are all poor and broken, not all one. We have a wide range of experiences, just like everybody else in the United States. It's just that in certain instances, and historically what has been done to us, the opportunity for success has been stifled. And I'm going to say, this is going to be my last word. I'm going to say this. Picture this. All the races in America are lined up on a race. You get ready to take off. The starter says, when I start the gun, only white men can take off. He blows the gun, white men and white women take off. White men get ahead, white women right behind him. He waits about 5-10 minutes and then clicks the gun and say, okay, Black people, you can go. Hispanics, other people of color, you can go. That's what we're in. We're in a race that has been handicapped against us. I'm not asking for anybody to give me anything I didn't earn. If we don't get reparations, it's not going to change my life. I'm still going to achieve. But what I would say is you don't have to give me cash, but you could wipe out those student loans. You could make it so that every Black kid in America goes to college for free, or give people grants to start businesses. I totally agree with that. Do I expect the government to sit down and write me a check for the equivalence of 40 acres and a mule, which is probably somewhere around $300,000 and or so? No. But I think that if I have $100,000 in loans for school, or I want to start a small business, or I've served in the military and I want to get a home with no interest rate for my entire lifetime, that should be done to make things equal over a set amount of years. Slavery lasted for 400 years. I would say for the next 250 to 400 years, you allow those programs to take over. And then whenever all boats are equal, and I would even say that those programs should also be means tested to some extent. Not means tested to exclude Black people, but means tested in a manner that Black people that I talked about that grew up in Bel Air should at the very minimum get the minimum things. And then Black people who grew up in Cabrini Green maybe should get the maximum amount of things. We have to make the playing field equal. And until white people admit their sin, and until Black people are made whole from that sin, you're going to have this conflict. And my final thing to say is giving a person their rights does not take away your rights. And I think that's where we are in this country, that if Black people or women or disabilities or some other group is giving something, that something's being taken from somebody else. No, all that's doing is bringing us all to the same point at the starting line. So when the gun goes off, we can all take off.
Right.
Not just one group takes off and then the rest of y'all, it's not your turn yet, and then you can go.
And let me piggyback on this, which was fabulous, brother. But you spot on. That's why you're my main political contributor here. But listen, it says something that this country, reparations were given to the Japanese Americans who were interned, and rightfully so. They should have gotten those reparations. Jewish Americans have gotten reparations because America did play a major part, not directly, but American government and policies, because we got to look, we're talking about the 30s. All right. As a matter of fact, the Nuremberg laws that Hitler used were basically Nazi Germany's version of Jim Crow laws. Because if you do the research, you will see that Nazi Germany and Hitler used America's Jim Crow laws as a template, and the eugenics that Sean was talking about in terms of this fake science. They used that as a template against the Jews in Europe, not just Germany, but all throughout Europe. So it says something that, and even some, a very small number, but there were some indigenous people here in America, some Native Americans that got some small amount of reparations. I can't think of exactly what it was. But how is it that everybody else can get some form of reparation, but why is it so wrong for the group of people who were aggrieved, I'll say, the most outside of Native Americans? No group of people were aggrieved more than Black Americans. And it's a problem that you want to somehow atone and acknowledge, not to mention all the wealth that has been created that still exists from the free labor that Black Americans provided, not to mention all the money and the wealth that Black Americans would have if you didn't burn down Rosewood, Florida, and Durham, and Wilmington, North Carolina, and Durham, North Carolina, and the thriving Black belts in Chicago, Black Wall Street, the Red Summer of 1919, 20, 21, 22, 23, when you had all those race riots and the Tulsa race massacre. So if you combined all that, yeah, damn, yeah, $300,000 you getting off cheap. You can get off easy.
I even would say that reparations are owed for COINTELPRO.
Oh God.
For things that were done when it comes to crack and stuff in the 80s and 90s.
Redlining.
Redlining. My family is a victim of redlining. Still, it didn't stop what my grandfather was able to achieve with a third grade education. But still, he was a victim of redlining. And that's something that I am seriously looking at once I graduate, seeing if there's some action that can be brought. That's hundreds of, maybe trillions of dollars that you may not have to do reparations, that if you settle out on the redlining that you did to Black folks, and the fact that Black folks were buying houses under contract but couldn't get mortgages and would pay for 20, 30 years and miss one payment and lose the house.
Right.
My grandparents was fortunate. A Jewish family, when they bought their house on the west side, the guy happened to be a lawyer. They negotiated a direct mortgage with him. And that's the other thing. I want Black people to kind of separate the religious stuff and the conflicts with our Jewish brothers and sisters and work with them in solidarity, because here in America throughout the history, we've always had solidarity with them. And I tend to avoid religious debates with people because I think it's kind of like arguing with oil and water. You really can't. I mean, I even get into conflicts with people that have doctorate degrees and all this, and they say, oh, the Bible says we're 7,000 years old. And I'm like, well, science says that rock over there told us we're 4.6 billion years old. So you got the degree that you have, you had to pass an earth science test that said it's 4.6 billion. So are you going to turn in your degree, or are you going to listen to Jeebus? I don't know which one you got to choose. And again, that's not knocking religion or anything. That's just not how my life is formed. I believe in a higher power. I don't let it
and
for me like that.
and Sean,
And I have love for church. Don't get me wrong. I was a member of Mount Moriah for years,
right.
and it was one of the most fulfilling spiritual experiences I've ever had.
And let me say this: the two have always coexisted. It's when people use religion. See, there's a difference between spirituality and religion. When people use religion for, to oppress people, to have
control.
domain and power and control over people. Because if we want to, I'll just put a little bow on this part.
Yeah.
Do your research, ladies and gentlemen. Since we talked about Africa and where really civilization, humankind really began, the continent that is Africa. This version of Christianity that we have in America, this is the remix version. All right. Do you know that Christianity was practiced in Africa for centuries? In the Middle East, there's something called Coptic Christians. So do your research.
In Iraq and Iran,
yes,
right where we fought in the Gulf War. They live over there, and they were oppressed during all this, and so I totally get that. I think the last thing I want to say while I have this platform and opportunity is, no matter what they're doing with the voter laws, we still need to be vigilant and flexible, because in the short term, in places like Georgia, things may change, but in the long term, you got to keep your eyes on the prize. If you continue voting in Georgia and these southern states like Georgia has at those numbers, you're going to take over the state government control. Then that way you can really change some of these laws. And so what I would say for the next 4 years to everybody listening, I'm going to talk about this ad nauseum as long as Geno brings me on this story. State capitals, state capitals, state capitals. Get control of state capitals.
Yes.
You have to make that your agenda, because we saw what happens if you allow the other side to have control of state capitals. And then no matter what you do in an election, they can make it very difficult. This last election showed us that. And so we need to keep the eyes on the prize. Local, state government. That should be our goal for the next 4 years.
Great minds think alike, because I wanted that unless something else major jumps off, because I wanted to get into that tonight. I want that to be like one of the main theme, if not the main theme. So based on your availability, that I want to talk about state government, governors, state representatives, state senators that are passing these state laws to basically suppress and revoke all of your voting rights, to make it to where they close all the polling places in the black neighborhoods, and you got to drive an hour, and you can't vote by mail, when Republicans were voting by mail for years. And it wasn't a problem because only Republicans at the time were voting by mail. But the year when black folks is like, it's a global pandemic that we haven't seen in 100 years. It's safe.
We need to pass the National Election Act that in state governments and nationally, when we hold elections, that the election day is a holiday. And the reason why I say that is, what happens is, what they're doing by not allowing everybody equal access to mail-in or absentee, whatever you want to call it, is it hurts the low wage worker, because the low wage worker can't take extended hourly worker can't take extended lunch breaks without getting penalized. See, me, I pretty much ever since I've been working after Red Lobster when I was a teenager, I've been on salary. So guess what Felix does? On the handbook and most jobs, it says that you can't penalize me for taking time off to vote, and I take time off to vote. And even when I'm an attorney, and even when I'm a judge sitting on the bench, I'm going to say court is adjourned and take my ass to go vote. So I think that people need to approach it all that same way. And again, state and local. You need the city council, you need the dog catcher, you need the school board, you need the state legislator, assembly, the state senate, and
district attorneys.
District attorneys, all of these things. You should be talking to your neighbors. You should be talking to your white and black and Hispanic and Asian friends, gay, straight, religious and non-religious. For the next 4 years, for the next 2 to 4 years, the focus is on state governments, getting people elected. And those of you that are listening that are educated, qualified business owners, run for state office, run for local office, all of those things. Absolutely. We need to continue. What I'm afraid of is what happened in 2008. We elected Barack Obama and we thought, well, I didn't think that, but some of y'all out there,
No.
yeah, I'm talking to you. That saying, well, it wasn't me. Yeah, some of y'all out there thought voting Barack Obama in, you were done. No, the fight never stops.
That was the
You have to
beginning.
vote.
That was really just the
Yes.
beginning. It really was.
Yes, and we just at the beginning of we're at the beginning middle. We're not even at even at the end of the beginning, and so we still got a long way to go. Me and you will be white haired before it gets to where it needs to go. But the reality is, our children and a lot of your listeners and my peers and their children are carrying up the fight. That's why it's important that we have platforms like this. That's why it's important that we keep on talking about the message.
Sean Mitchell
have to vote local.
Always brings the fire, and I'm dropping the mic with him on this. Once again, I want to speak to my melanated challenge brothers and sisters out there. Let's talk about that. The science will tell you, if you Google it, that the reason that you have humans with darker hued skin like Sean and I, because our ancestors remained close to the equator. So we've remained on the continent of Africa. So to some of my melanated cousins, they migrated north. And the way science and biology and evolution works, basically, if you live in a climate to where there's not a lot of sunlight, what happens, just biology itself just adjusts so your body realizes, I don't need to produce as much melanin. So my pigmentation is going to be naturally lighter because I don't need to release this amount of melanin to protect my skin from radiation or whatever. So this is not my opinion. This is science. You can look that up yourself. So I'm saying all that to say the truth is, it really, what nobody really wants to talk about, especially the people that created this concept of whiteness, to pit lighter skinned, more melanin challenged humans against humans who had more melanin in them, was so they could control, power, and domain over the masses of people. But at the end of the day, the DNA test will not say that you belong to black, white, yellow, red race. It will say you are a part of the human race. And COVID-19 taught us that, because COVID-19 didn't give a damn about what country your ancestors were from. It looks for not a black host, not a white host, not a host from China or Europe, France, Germany, Great Britain, America, Brazil, Portugal. It looks for a human host. And if that human host is not careful, that virus will be like, thank you, here we go. We are all part of the human race.
I'm waiting on the Chicago variant of the COVID strain. It's gonna make you fiend for Uncle Remus chicken.
Oh no, Harold's now. So Uncle Remus must be on the other side of Austin Avenue or Harlem Avenue.
It's the West Side, man. That's the West Side chicken. I got love. Don't get me wrong, I love Harold's too, but I got love for Uncle Remus.
Harold's, come on, man.
I'm a West Side. I'm a West Side kid, man.
Hey, but come on, West Side everybody loves Harold's. Look, that's like Garrett's popcorn. It don't matter what side of Chicago you from.
Yeah, you're right. Garrett's.
Come on now.
Or Wiener Circle.
Okay, right.
It doesn't matter where you. Right. Or Maxwell Street. It doesn't matter what side of town you're from. Everybody loves Maxwell Street.
With the old Maxwell, which is a whole other story. We'll get into that.
Yeah, I didn't use.
Yeah.
I know that. Hey, Geno, it's always a pleasure being on the Geno Jones
Listen,
show,
man, your commentary, your contribution to today's show was fire. It was the truth, it's honesty, and that's why I love you. But I love you for more reasons than that, brother. I'm proud of you. So, but when we come back, I get you back, because this is a busy time for you, we are really going to take a deep dive in terms of what we need to do, what you need to do because I got a strategy. Because, and I'm gonna use a sports analogy. It's like studying game film, and the good thing is that the opponent is basically, we don't need like the New England Patriots to like go and sneak and tape somebody's practice. The opponents are giving you their playbook. They're telling you exactly what these laws are gonna look like. So I got a strategy. Oh, you gonna give me the playbook? Okay, cool. I'm gonna read the playbook, and we're gonna figure out a way. We're gonna turn a negative into a positive. we're going to take what they think is their strength and turn it into their weakness. That'll be.
I want to beat them like the greatest NBA team ever, that 72-10 Chicago Bulls with Jordan, that beat down. That's the most classic beat down ever in NBA history. And that's how I want to beat the QAnon Republicans.
I'm from the Chi, but I'm a Shaq and Kobe, and I'm a Kareem and Magic Lakers fan. So on that note, I know I need to end the show. That'll be a whole. We'll be going at it for a whole nother hour. Sean Mitchell, ladies and gentlemen, my political. He is the political contributor, political editor for the Geno Jones Show. Thank you, brother. Love and respect. All right, we'll talk soon.
Love to the family, brother.
Go get ready for those midterms. That's my dude right there, y'all. Sean Mitchell. He is a brilliant brother. I told you guys that, and just really a good dude. So thank you for letting me be a part of your life. As always, God bless each and every one of you. God, most of all, thank you for letting me do the Geno Jones Daily Variety Show, brought to you by Lockwood Outdoor Advertising, converting cars into cash. Check them out, LockwoodOutdoor.com. LockwoodOutdoor.com. You want to do some outdoor advertising on a beautiful, huge digital billboard, your company. Even if you don't live here in the Carolinas, you can have a company where people can do business with you online. They can go to your website. This is a huge tourist area. So you've got a business that appeals to, you got a product, service, or good that appeals to people who love to travel. This is like one of the travel capitals on the planet. And you want to get your business out there. Lockwood, that's LockwoodOutdoor.com. LockwoodOutdoor.com. Lockwood Outdoor Advertising. All right. And shout out to Bruce Gage, the official wardrobe consultant and stylist for the Geno Jones Show. Check him out on Instagram. You can check out what he's got there. He's got a loft in Chicago with his fashion. So you can go to his, because of COVID now, you can just go to his Instagram page and you can see all of the fashions. He is so fashion forward. What you'll see on his Instagram page will be in style. It'll be in vogue, and like the rest of the stores, in about a year and a half, they'll catch up with, he's always that far ahead. Also, flyballthestore.com. If you are a fan of the old Negro Baseball League, or just really some really cool looking, vibes, a really cool brand, Flyball the Store. It's one of the few officially licensed vendors to carry the official Negro Baseball League memorabilia, but they have jackets, they have sweaters, they have t-shirts, they have COVID-19 masks, ladies, they have dresses, and a lot more. Check out flyballthestore.com, or just check out Bruce Gage to check out his fashions. He is, like I said, the official wardrobe consultant for the Geno Jones Show. Shout out to Markel Bailey, the official barber and hairstylist for the show. Markel Bailey is on Instagram, Kel, KELBECUTTIN, Kel B. Cuttin on Instagram. Thank you for watching. God bless each and every one of you. God, most of all, thank you for letting me do the Geno Show. Each and every one of you. I love you. I really, really do. And like I said, remember, at the end of the day, this whole concept of race and whiteness and all that, it was made up to divide you, even among black people. The colorism, light skin, dark skin, red bone, black. This was created so we could hate each other, to divide us from each other, because we all belong to one family. That's the truth. That's the secret. Some folks really don't want you, because hate, racism, the whole concept of white supremacy, white nationalism, anti-Semitism, anti-Muslim hate, anti-immigrant hate, all of any form of hate, homophobia, transphobia, hate and fear is big business and always has been. But let's end the profit margin. Let's eliminate the profit margin out of hate. And if you can take the profit margin out of anything, I guarantee you, it'll end real quick. Now, in this case, it may not end so quick, because this hate, this has existed for a long time. But I'm a glass half full guy. By nature, I'm very optimistic, so I have faith. I have faith in my young people. Mother, I love you. Everybody watching, I love you. I really do. And thank you for watching. Tomorrow, Thursday, another edition of the Geno Jones Show. Go back and binge watch all my previous past episodes. Shout out to Joan Robinson Berry. March is Women's History Month. Joan Robinson Berry recently retired she was a vice president for Boeing here in South Carolina and a senior engineer. She now has a brand new company she's formed. I think it's called Data Linguist Analytics. I don't have the notes in front of me, but she was a very interesting show. Some great advice about why we need to make sure that we expose our children and turn them on and encourage them to get into the STEM field, science and technology, engineering and math, because they spend all this time, gaming and on their smartphones and tablets, and they know how to operate an iPhone or Samsung, an Android. At 2 years old, they can operate it like they built a thing. So it's something we need to encourage our young people to look at. Hey, here's an option. You spend all that time gaming, build the game, design a game. How about that? Create your own. Just create some new algorithms and eliminate the hate and the bigotry and the racism that's been developed and designed into these algorithms. That's a whole nother conversation, everybody. Thank you for watching. Tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, but go back and binge watch. Got some great episodes, got some great celebrity interviews. Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, R&B icon Lenny Williams, Miss Lettucey herself, and a whole lot more. Got some more coming up. All right. 6:30 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, 5:30 p.m. in Chicago, 3:30 p.m. if you're out in Los Angeles or wherever you are. Until tomorrow, until the next time, be blessed. Thanks again for watching.
Subscribe and tune in to the next episode of The Geno Jones Show, exclusively right here on YouTube.